What's up, YouTubers? Today we're going to talk about the ProTech Strider SnG knife. I do happen to have two of these knives. It's a knife that I love so much that I bought it twice. This one I'll just talk about briefly right now. The top one here is the Operator Edition, and basically what ProTech does with their Operator Editions is they pretty much take off any branding and billboarding of any kind, and then they put in they do DLC coat the blade, and they put in a tritium so that it'll glow in the dark little thing on the button there. So that one costs about $30 more than this one. It does weigh about 0.4 ounces more, so I'll just get this one out of the way and then we'll complete the review on the G10 model. But that one weighs 4.9 ounces, and again, that one goes for $280. Other than that, the composition of the knife, the blade steel, this one just happens to be, the Operator Edition happens to be fully aluminum, whereas this one has a G10 slab next to aluminum on the other hand side. So we'll go ahead and put that guy away. We're going to be talking about this one. The ProTech Strider SnG is a side opening automatic with a 3.5-inch blade of 154 cm steel, and it has actually only about 2.75 inches of usable blade. So you might notice that there's a fair amount of non-usable space here, but I do appreciate the choil, and generally speaking 2.75 inches is enough for the cutting edge, for my part. This particular knife sells for about $250 typically. They make them in just different batches. You just got to watch as they come out. Knife Center has them. This particular one I got like Blade HQ some time ago. This is the camouflage G10 or whatever, but this one weighs 4.5 ounces. So it is 0.4 ounces less than that other one. And again, the reason I'm going to review this is because this is the actual one that I use. I admit the Operator Edition one is kind of a collector's knife. I really do like the ergonomics of this knife and the design on the whole. And it's just one of those that if I decided I was going to get one of those Operator Editions of ProTech, it was going to be the this SnG. So let's proceed forth. In terms of like some comparison knives, and the very kind of low budget end, you could talk about the Boker Kalashnikov. This one goes for, this is the Desert Warrior one. It goes for about $45 typically. The Boker Strike is probably a better more comparison in terms of a harder use capable knife. It does have a better steel. That one is D2 steel. This one goes for about in between $60 and $80 or so. So that again, for kind of a lower end automatic knife, those might be some options for you. In terms of some of the higher end knives that I think it's actually more directly comparable to, there's the Microtech LUDT. That's the Large Underwater Demolition Team. This knife goes for like $280 and it's LMAX steel. But then also, really for me, I thought the best really comparison was going to be the Les George, the Rockeye. This is basically the Les George VSEP model, but done in collaboration with ProTech, and it's an automatic. So very kind of similar in terms of harder use. Definitely a little bit better capabilities than just kind of some of your wimpier automatic models. So that definitely would be one to consider in there, and that one goes for like $300. So $250, $300, it's in that range. In terms of the pros of this knife, the ergonomics are fantastic. Whether you're in this front position, which kind of tends to feel like the more normal position, or if you're in the back position too, it kind of just fits in your hand really, really well there. So ergonomics, great. The ProTech construction and translation of the manual edition of this, I think is fantastic. The fact that it utilizes these external stop pins out here is really nice. Really a lot of all the lines, the jimping, even the pocket clip, and we'll talk about that. It's actually kind of one of the negatives, but they really did a very great job of constructing this to be a harder use. I won't say a hard use knife, but a harder use knife from the custom manual. So in terms of that, ProTech did an absolute A+ job on that particular thing. Also, ProTech does a fantastic job of recessing their plunge lock button. So there's no real chance of it. You can. Well, let me go ahead and bring this one up. The great thing about ProTech is, if you take a look at that, this is not going to ever be set off by anything protruding. It can sit down, you can put pressure on it. That recessed button is very, very nice thing. from ProTech knives, and this one just follows through with that. And then this knife is super reliable. I fired this probably, just in use, probably a good 1,000 to 2,000 times, and never fails. Absolutely is fantastic. So great ProTech reliability there. On the con side, I think in some senses they paid too much homage to the original. And so two specific things kind of bothered me on this is, if I don't know what sort of agreements they have with the designers, makers, and what freedom and license they may have to change or correct some things, but there were really two things that I do want to talk about. One is that this largely awful pocket clip, it works, but I'm not a super deep carry crazed fanatic. I don't mind having a little bit, but you're leaving about a quarter of this knife and it's just a big old hunkin' piece sticking out of your pocket. So, ProTech does such a good job with their foldovers or loop over clips that this would have been an opportunity, I think, to really fix that. And this clip also it was actually, even though it's very smooth, it's kind of murderous on the pocket. It's it's extremely tight. This is never falling out of your pocket with that particular clip. So again, I think they missed the boat on that. Could have fixed that a little bit. And then last thing I think that it's kind of always bothered me about this knife is I have felt that the sharpening choil, the teardrop shape goes in the wrong direction. And I'll show you what I mean by holding it up this way. So if you take a look at this one, let me get a little poker stick here. You have the sharp, or basically the deep groove part of it there, and then the shallow up there. And I think this should be reversed. And I'll show you what I mean. I kind of have a little drawing here. So instead of it going that way, it should be flip-flopped this way, so that you have the sharper turn there, and then the natural groove. Because one thing I will say, that this particular the way that this choil works is, it definitely being so large, it gets caught on a lot of things that you kind of wish that it wouldn't get caught on. This isn't like a gut hook. That's not sharp there, for like cutting fish or anything. But it does get caught on more things than I'd like, because it is so long from end to end on that thing. So I think had they been reversed, I think that would have actually made this the perfect choil, because then you'd have kind of that natural gradation to your sharp cutting surface. So that was just one where I actually honestly thought, as a negative, they just paid too much homage to it. The 154 cm steel, I feel a little bit cheapened out, and I can definitely say that, becoming kind of a knife snob, it's for this price range of $250 in this steel, I'm expecting, especially quote-unquote hard use, that's not very hard use steel. I mean, it may be hard in terms of toughness, and it's not going to break, but I'll show you what I mean. Is after using this thing for 2 weeks, it really did lose, and it lost a lot of its edge, and it doesn't cut super well. This is a good example of an item that I'm putting a lot of pressure on this. It takes 3 times to go through that. Yes, this is some very thick zip tie material, but I went through that exact same zip tie material with the S30V on the Spyderco Sage 5 after 2 weeks of use on it, and honestly, I did a lot more use on the Sage 5. So the S30V definitely kind of beat the pants off of this. Even going back to the Rockeye back here, this one utilizes S35 VN steel. So I felt a little bit cheapened by that for the price. It's easy enough to sharpen. And then the last thing I'll say is, actually they did a kind of a poor sharpening job, and it was kind of an anomaly for ProTech, because I have several others, and they've all been very sharp out of the box. But this was functional, but I did have to touch it up on the sharp maker from my Spyderco sharp maker. So yeah, that's kind of one of the cons. So it has a few things against it on this one. Overall, what would I say? I would say this is a very high-end knife that you can beat around. I won't necessarily call it a beater, but this isn't one I'm going to probably be sliding on the concrete, in the garage if I'm under a car. But at the same time, I probably wouldn't worry too much if I did it. I know it's going to be fine. It would just be a matter of, don't want to scratch off the anodizing or the cooked on nitride from the aluminum side there. On the G10 side, I actually wouldn't have any sort of problem sliding that thing across. It can definitely take it, and so far as that. So it as a hard use automatic, yeah. This thing is a harder use automatic. I definitely would agree that it's one that you can beat a little bit more on. And I actually did use a lot of backside, not prying, but basically cutting off zip ties from a cable there. And so I picked up some good scratches on the backside, and it did just fine. So harder use automatic, really, that's what it's for. If you like the SNG manual and you like the shape, the ergonomics of it, the design, as I do, obviously I bought 2 of these, then you're going to really like this automatic. And so I really like it. This is definitely my user, and I don't mind using it. I would say there are much better values, even from ProTech out there. So, take a look around at some other ones. If you really like it, go for it. Otherwise, I'd consider some alternatives for that $250 price range. I hope you did find this of use today. If you did, like and subscribe, and have a great day for yourselves. Take care now.